I have a number of friends who have been convinced for years that Hillary Clinton is going to end up in jail for something that she did or allegedly did while she was in office. And although that, I suppose, is a bit of a possibility, I think it's a long shot, and I'm going to explain why. In part due to the ruling that happened on Friday when the lawsuit against her was tossed out, and in part just due to the nature of government in general. First and foremost, acting as Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton had a whole number of perks that the average person just simply doesn't have. And that, I think, probably goes to just about anybody who's in any kind of public office. Part of it has to do with that the laws are written by those in power to protect those in power, and therefore something that you and I might do that would be considered a crime, if they did it, it's not a crime by the very nature of the definition. Look at the issue of spying. A government agent can commit an act of spying, and if it's done on behalf of his government, then he's a hero. If he's caught by the other side, he's a traitor. See how that works? The same thing happens for political appointees or people who are elected, either way. When they are accused of a crime, very often the crime simply didn't exist because of the way the law is written. Because they did it, it's not a crime. That's wrong, and I think most people know it's wrong. I mean, that whole James Bond idea of license to kill. Really? Does anybody have a license to kill? Just because the government says you, because you're wearing this particular outfit, or because you're carrying this particular card or identification, you are allowed to kill with impunity because you're doing your duty. Whether we're talking about soldiers or spies or officers of the law, it doesn't matter. They get this protection that takes their behavior, which if it were done by an ordinary person would be considered a crime, and turns it into not a crime. Now, back to Clinton. In her case, people were zeroing in on the fact that she was using non-governmental email sources and servers to do her communication. Now, look, a lot of this is the fact that we're dealing with communications technologies that are outstripping our ability to conceive of writing laws around them. And simply because somebody is using something which is faster or more reliable or more convenient doesn't make it wrong. And I'm not defending her for doing it. I'm not attacking her for doing it either way, but I think it's a non-starter because the real issue would be whether or not she revealed any information to somebody outside the official chain of command of whether or not she was doing anything wrong. Now, back to this issue of Benghazi. Why were the Americans there in the first place? Nobody seems to be focusing in on the fact that this incident in September 11th, 2012 had to do with an arms deal in which Americans were taking arms and sending them to Syria and the Syrian rebels there. And they were doing it through some rebel group in Libya, kind of an interbroker, whatever. Those men who were killed, these American heroes, as some like to portray them, were doing the dirty work of the U.S. government in perpetuating a war in another country. I'm not saying they deserved to die, but I am saying that if you run into a burning building, you ought not to be surprised if that burning building collapses around you. Now, again, back to Clinton. The lawsuit filed against her by the family members alleging that it was her fault that they got killed. A lot of people pinning their hopes on getting Clinton and getting her in prison because of this. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your time because government is going to defend government. What court did you file this lawsuit in? Oh, was it a government court? Oh, and it was an Obama-appointed judge who threw it out? Oh, well, look, once again, regardless of the names involved, regardless of Democrat or Republican or Obama or Bush or Trump or Clinton, it doesn't matter. The people who get their paycheck from government are going to do everything they can to defend government and other government officials because if it's not them this time, it'll be them next time. See where I'm going with this? Anyway, that's my 2 cents on it. If you've got a different point of view, you'd like to tell me where I'm wrong, send me an email, steve@radiofreespeech.com. I'd love to engage you on this topic or anything else. steve@radiofreespeech.com. Thanks.